Hello, and welcome to Guys Dealings with Feelings, the podcast dedicated to addressing men's mental health issues and providing practical solutions. As always, I'm joined by my friend and colleague Jason, who was through years of professional and
Hey.
personal experiences, including trauma and recovery, as well as his 18 years plus of being a licensed therapist, and my journey being profoundly shaped by the tragic loss of my son. We've come together to share all the things we've learned, continue to learn, and in hopes of touching others who are in need of hearing some of the things we have to say, and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I know that life can be, well, we both know how discouraging life can be. Life is tough. Life is not easy. Fill in all the things we've heard our whole lives. So we're here to try to help, and we're doing our best. We'll try to make the content as concise and interesting as possible. And we understand that the topic, the mere idea of starting this podcast is the fact that this topic amongst men is taboo. Men don't talk about it, especially in our society in the United States. That is one of the core issues, and so we're here to address those things, and we try to do it. Jason, how you doing today?
I am okay. Yeah.
Good. So today we're wanting to discuss community. It won't just be around men as much as it will be the changes in what we understand as a community, is our community. I know my community is extraordinarily important in my life. Even it is strained by the current setup that we function in, I guess. And I've got a really tight knit group of buddies, you being one of them, and we we are constantly available to one another, but we don't talk a ton. It's just not, we've got families, we've got jobs, we've got things that we've got to do. Some of, we got a good buddy who lives out of town, but they're always there, and I know they are. And if I need anything, even if that's just a simple question of what do you think about this, because I know they're in that arena or whatever, they're there for me. And knowing that is huge in my confidence, comfort, love for myself. It's affirmation for me. I know there's it's tough because online is what I think is what is a big part of what's broken things that we knew. I know you want to dive into this a little more, but I know that community is important, and it still is a strain to be actively involved with the tight knit community I've created for myself.
Yeah. You mean it's trying to actively engage or contribute? Is that what you mean?
Right.
Like, yeah. No, I know. Yes. But I mean, yeah, but you're contributing to the community, your immediate community, right? It's right in front of you. You're working to be as responsible and mature as you can with what's right around you, right?
That's right.
So that's beautiful. But yeah, it is hard, isn't it? Like it's challenging. Yeah, I don't. That sort of isolated part of the masculine experience. It's strange.
Yeah.
I definitely relate to it, and have to actively work to reach out in a way, you know? Because I'm such an active participant in my family that it takes up time, right? Like I think this is interrelated. I saw a statistic the other day that said like 1982 or something like that 43% of men reported never having changed a diaper ever, and then cut to like 2012 or something. It was 40 years later. 65% of men reported doing it a lot. That's a that's a really big swing in 40 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my role in the day to day family life here, right, as yours is pretty involved, isn't it? I mean, there's laundry, dishes, cooking. It's a, I mean, there might be some things that she does a little more than I do or something, but I mean, it's an egalitarian division
Labor.
of labor, right? I mean,
Yep.
that's what y'all. That's y'all too, right?
I think a successful relationship is divvied up the labor needed and that's
Yeah, I
dependent
hear
upon
you. I
is
hear you. I
dependent
hear you.
upon
Yeah.
what the labor is, right? Is that labor times 4 kids, and that means that there's more labor that has to be divvied.
Yeah. That's a great, man. And I would say it's about clarity and communication,
Hmm.
because some days I don't have, I'm tired, or maybe she's got a little more spunk in the
Hmm.
day than I do, or something, you know. But if we're clear about that and we can communicate it, we're using each other. But I mean, I hear what you mean. I might just touch into it a little bit.
I don't have assigned anything in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
home.
yeah.
We take care of everything as a unit, but
Mhm.
I think it's understood definitely by me that
Yeah,
there's certain things I do more of than she does, and there's certain things she does more of than I do.
yeah.
But
Same
if I see it, I'm gonna do it, and
Same
I'll
here.
knock this out.
Right?
I'm not.
Yeah, same
She
here.
doesn't have to be the one that does it. Oh,
Right.
it's not my job. I don't do that. But we try to capitalize on each other's positive. So I totally understand, and we're not assigned. But I think a healthy relationship involves that.
We use each other's strengths, and I'm brought up the diaper example, because I think it highlights how much as men we're being asked to operate, not asked, I mean, it's just what life is presenting, in spaces that are in a ton of ways unfamiliar to us.
Mm-hmm.
These emotional spaces where it requires softness and openness and curiosity and uh, a lack of reactivity and, you know, patience. That's a tricky space for us, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And that's a quick change. That's a single generation change.
It's fast.
And so where my father was not even there, but even if he had been, he wouldn't have been changing my diapers and around the house coddling me.
Yeah.
To I, I'm I may be one of the ones at the house doing the coddling of the next generation. So I'm doing, you say unfamiliar, yeah, completely foreign,
Yeah.
and that's how fatherhood was for me. I didn't have, and I'm not angry at my father. I love my dad, all that stuff. I'm just saying, I, he he wasn't in the house, so I don't know what the fuck a dad looks like. So then I become a dad, and how many people in our generation, especially Gen X, our parents were kind of the leaders
Yeah.
in divorce, and so
Yeah.
we didn't have one or the other growing up, and so that was absent. So then we just had to kind of forge our own way. Well, anytime you do something for the first fucking time, it ain't gonna look good. It's not gonna be your
It's
best go.
bumpy. It's bumpy.
Yeah.
It's
Every time you
bumpy.
drive, the first time you do your job, anything, the first time you do it, you're gonna suck at it. Now you may get through it. I think that's what we do as parents, and as grandparents, we have so much more wisdom. We've brought ourselves together. We understand ourselves more. We understand what's really important. Leaving the toilet lid up versus being able to identify an emotion is so drastically different in importance, and we spend more time on making sure the toilet lid's down. We fucked up, and as grandparents, we can see that, and and I think that happens with all different
It's a
demographics.
yeah, it's a natural evolution,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
If you, I mean, there are exceptions always, always. There are exceptions on the planet. There are always individuals that are significantly ahead of the game, you
hmm
know.
and it's
But go
the
ahead.
patterns. I think the patterns that go with it. The patterns of
Yeah. On a whole, it's evolutionary. So, the people that raised us just did not have the same amount of information that we do, and so their experience, you know, I guess, how could you say it? Yeah, it was just less. There was less information available to them to help them understand what was happening in a way. You get what I mean? Uh, things are changing so rapidly. It's not like we have these internal cultural responses to help us navigate the changes, right? Just happening so fast. Uh, and so then there we are, and we are now in the realm of feelings, being able to know what we feel, have intimacy with what we feel, being able to communicate it more clearly, right?
you know
And that is, yeah, just like we said, just a more foreign territory for us.
Yeah, and then you add the layer of the internet on top of that, where we've changed our socialization out at the community center, the church house, at picnics with the company, whatever it may be. We've traded that in for Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and that is where we find our socializing. Well, if we're incapable of doing what you're talking about, which is recognizing our feelings and understanding them, we can become angry. We can become all these different things, and then we can just feed that with the internet, and the algorithm will see whatever it is, what rabbit trail you're going down, and they're just going to keep pumping you that shit, allowing you to continue to go down said rabbit hole. Then you find yourself doing things that you wouldn't have done on the schoolyard, but
Yeah,
now that
yeah,
you're
yeah,
sitting
yeah,
behind a
yeah, yeah.
keyboard, you're doing
You,
them.
man, I love that. That's how I relate. Without us knowing it, I mean, the American population as a whole, at varying levels, right? We have been conditioned out of out of having a relationship to what is happening inside of us and who we are. And we've literally been conditioned out of community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so because we all run around in these like mental, self-contained, self-centered bubbles in a way, um, and to be honest, really what that's about is we're trying to become satisfied with things in the world in a way that just are not going to satisfy our deepest desires, right? So, like in reality, the reason we're in so much pain is because of being so disconnected, so isolated in these individualized, alienated bubbles with some idea that we're unable to cope or there's something genetically wrong with us or some shit. There's a lot of real powerful ideas that convince us out of really who we are. So since we're all participating in this project together in a way, whether people like it or not, I mean, it just is what it is. It's not a, you know what I'm trying to say. And it's my suggestion that the reason or a way of talking about why we're so disconnected from one another is because we've been conditioned out of being in a relationship with what we feel on a deep, deep level. Like, really. Because on the deepest level, as a human, it doesn't matter where you're born on the earth, or it doesn't matter. The heart is open and inclusive, non judgmental. You see what I mean? And the mind is judging and comparative and right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and we're just running around stuck in our heads. And so we can't actually feel how connected we are to everybody going, doing the same thing we're doing, trying their best to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, yeah. I think something that will exemplify this. It's a story. It's a good friend of both of ours, and he was in his own neighborhood, and he's got his wife and 15-year-old trying to uh, practice driving around the neighborhood, and a neighbor who they don't know. It's a pretty small neighborhood. It's a subdivision. A neighbor who they don't know, like, gets out in front of the car, stops them after they've driven by a couple of times because they're practicing, and gets to hollering at the 15-year-old. Well, the 15-year-old does the right thing and just doesn't say anything, and they end up driving home. And our friend, you know where we're from, he gets in his truck and drives down there, and it turns into immediate confrontation that eventually was de-escalated before anybody was any physical activity or police or any of that mess. but it definitely was on the precipice. And, had guns been involved, that could turn into something deadly immediately. And right there is what I'm talking about, the breaking of
Yeah.
communication between human beings. Instead of one human being expressing. And what ended up happening is that the neighbor who was upset, now, why he couldn't tell it was a 15-year-old and his mother, I don't know.
Yeah.
But why he was upset was something that had previously happened in the neighborhood that was very alarming. And our friend would have wanted to know that information.
Yes.
And
And us being so isolated and disconnected from one another, forgetting who we are on the deepest level and how connected we are, right? Like really on the deepest human level. Uh, everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid because when you have separated everybody into these, and I'm not like I'm not talking, but anyway, when people are so separated in these little individualized bubbles in like a dog eat dog world with limited resources and everybody blah, 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 right? Which is not reality, right? Then you have fear
and fear
because
makes us do
everybody's
stupid shit.
so disconnected.
Yeah, we're in the amygdala. We're unable to make good
Yeah.
decisions or make decisions at all.
Yeah, you're like walking around a planet that's in a thing called a solar system and a universe and a gap. It's pretty mysterious where we currently find ourselves.
Where we find ourselves.
You know what I mean? And so there's existential. There are things being experienced on an existential level, on a very deep level, that people do not have access to. They do not know why they're experiencing what they're experiencing, and that feeling of being isolated, alone on the planet, having to figure everything out. Come on.
Pretty overwhelming.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's pretty overwhelming.
Luckily, it's the complete opposite of what's true. Luckily, so because it can't be possible any other way. But we do not have a perspective that relates to the atrocities and the things that we see on this planet. We don't understand it. We don't relate to it. We don't know that the world per se is actually a reflection or a representation of the collective level of consciousness. So you combine how awake you could say everybody is with the depth of who they are, and that makes up the world. That just reinforces the idea of one's own individual healing. But that doesn't need to happen in isolation. And in today's world, that healing, it rarely happens in isolation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the hurdles that we face begin focusing on self, understanding self, which is multifaceted. You begin to understand where to really put your time and effort. B, you have a stronger understanding of who you really are, what you really want, and then you can align with others to form a community. And then third would be to form a community. And if that's a community that is like mine, that stretches all the way back to high school, or if it's like a couple of my friends who just go back 20 years and, when my professional life began, or if it's somebody that is brand new and you haven't even met yet because you have changed who you are. All of those things are 1000% fine. It's the effort. Again, effort to dive into self, effort to evaluate self, effort to make changes that'll help self progress and find meaning and purpose and goals and what it is that they want. And then surround yourself with people with the same goals, thoughts, strategies, and
Can I touch into something too?
Sure.
I didn't mean to step on your toes, but sometimes I have a little ADHD in the mouth. Because it's paradoxical. So, the one hand suggesting that ultimately community is what it's all about. Connected, supportive element in our life. I mean, come on, right? And it's paradoxical because on the one hand you say, well, we have to focus on ourselves. And I'd say different. So we actually have to get clear about what's going on. We get clear about what's going on. What actually starts to become clear is we're just like everybody else. It's one of the things that becomes most clear when you begin to heal is that there begins to be this natural emergence of compassion. Uh, but that happens naturally as we start to genuinely acknowledge our own pain. Um, so I can't even stress how vital it is, right? It's what naturally happens. We soften, all our irritation and judgment running around. It's just fear and misunderstanding. I just wanted to touch into that because it's paradoxical. It's like the way of healing is you got to focus on your experience, but then that unlocks capacities to be of greater service to people around you.
Right.
Right.
And in that evolution of self, you become the target. You're aiming at a target. You find who you want to be. You find the goals you have, and you begin to evolve. You create this community around you that has the like-minded goals, like-minded thought processes, like-minded morals, and then the community will begin to affirm the positives and gains towards the goal and dissuade that which is not, toward, whether it's through direct, hey man, we don't do, I'm not participating in that shit. Why?
Yeah,
Because it doesn't go to the goal.
somebody challenging, or at least given really good observations that are challenging, right?
Right.
Honest observations.
And once we've created this community of people that we can trust, when when life hands us shit we don't want to hear, it's something or somebody that's been established that helps us affirm, okay, it just sucks to hear. It's the truth, it's reality, it's what I need. It just sucks to hear, but I trust Jason. So when Jason's affirming it, I can trust that the two of us have come to the same conclusion. Yes, we are alike. That's on purpose. I want somebody who thinks like I do making these decisions, not somebody who thinks differently. Because a different community is going to come to it oftentimes a different conclusion. They're going to come in that community, that's fine. But in your community, it's in line with you and what you want. And that's why it's so important that you know who you are, what you want to focus on, what your goals are in life. And then you're very careful about who you pick. This community can't be made up of just, well, I know these guys from high school. Well, if they're shitty guys or don't, that sounds judgmental. If they're not in line with what you're targeting, then they're just not your community. Could be great guys, could be shitty guys, could just be who care guys, but they're not on the same trajectory path that you're on. Different, not better or worse, different. And so they're not the ones. These people you don't even know are the ones. You get to know them, you get to trust them, etc. Or it could be like in my instance where we have all kind of taken a similar path and landed in similar positions and can still kind of rely on each other to hold each other accountable. And it's just the beauty of the internet is that it makes us all, the ability to be more connected is there, but the terror of it is that it rips us from the connections. It actually is a false connection. They're not real. If you're not talking to these people, even on the phone, then it's not real. Even if you know them in real life, but all you interact with is this image of them online. Both of you are being fake. Neither one of you wants to be completely honest for whatever reason, whether it's going to make somebody look better or worse, depending on the target of the post. So I think that's all just this make-believe world that we're operating in. And, you have what are called the trolls who are just out there and they're angry at the world. And so they're just taking it out one individual at a time. And what gives them power is that you're fucking there. You're there, and that gives them power. They're not going to do that in a parking lot or on the street. And if they do it, they'll only do it a handful of times. They won't do it to everybody they see like they do on the internet. And And if we're able to use the internet for its benefits, and that's to make a connection with a community, to sort of find people who have interest like I do, whether that's hiking or learning, importing, whatever it is that I'm targeting, construction, it's going to help me find these people and make that community. But then it's my job to take that to the next level, to make it a dinner with him and his significant other, to make it a picnic where our families get together, to bring a congregation of people together in a larger community. Think church, organization, club. These things that those are stupid, they're a waste of time. While we may not agree with the principle in which they are based, they are not stupid, nor are they a waste of time, because of the human connection that we receive, the accountability, the affirmation, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that our society is, ours for sure, right? That's what I'm trying to speak. That's what I'm speaking on. It's broken, and it's become, I think some of it stems from the political tensions. Some of it stems from the huge class differences, lower, middle, upper income inequalities. You say fighting for limited resources that shouldn't be limited at all. All of these things are being implemented for us and put in place on us, and we can either realize it or not. And this is not some big, I don't think.
Well,
we're not forcing some conspiracy theory or bullshit.
It's an accurate assessment. So here's part of how I relate to what you said too, just a little bit. Let me say this. So I think currently a way that you could relate to a certain quality of our relationships on a whole is transactional. It contributes to just a lack of community and spending time and laughing. And so, sure, everybody's fine on their individual bubbles in our little islands that we're on, you know what I mean? And we live in a time where it's, you could say, unprecedented material comfort. That's great. But what happens when that's challenged? Where do we go? Do you follow? And in reality, a lot of people are in that position. Where do you go? What support do we have? We're so individualistically focused that it's strange when parents are still helping children. Like, it makes no sense. What else would we be doing? This life, we've been told that this life is about our individual gratification and the gratification of our want. Anyway, that's just not what it is, right? And so, because our relational habit is one of transactional, that we don't know that really, that can contribute to our not even thinking about picking up the phone and spending time with other people. Doesn't even occur to us. Doesn't even come up. It's a trip, man. Like, that's odd, but it doesn't appear odd to us. And everybody runs around completely uneasy, restless, discontent, and we don't know why. It doesn't make sense to us. That's because we keep missing each other, judging each other, not on purpose. It's not.
Well, sometimes.
But it's related to the individualistic thing, because the judging is essentially saying you have something I don't have. See what I mean?
Or I'm better than you.
Yeah, or it shouldn't be that way. Well,
this is why I have what you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that judgment piece is fucking huge too. And we're judging machines.
So we're polarized. We're polarized. It's binary, us, them, left, right. It's all social engineering, man, in like really deep ways. It's the way culture operates in really deep ways. At least how ours has operated for quite a while in really deep ways. It's everybody's distracted in their head, struggling, but just don't know why, really. And like I said, if we can figure out a way to reconnect on like smaller scale to larger scale, right? A lot of things could change. But yeah, but we're in a challenging position.
Yeah. So the challenge to create a community is not something that, I think that men are feeling more and more isolated. We're in a isolated position. We get isolated from the family unit and going out to gather food, then to gather money, to be the breadwinner. I'm not supposed to have emotions. They're supposed to fight through, blah, 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 blah. All the things we talked about. You've got that. Uh, then on top of that, you've got society's social engineering that you refer to. Then you've got technology on top of that,
which is part of the engineering,
which is used by the engineers.
Yeah.
And you put those things together, and you end up with where we are, where men, even though there are things available to them, relatively, quote unquote, easy to find, a Google away, if you will, they're not found. And it's interesting how, when one is presented with information, how they will. And I'm an individual. I've definitely done it. I write about it in my book, about individuals coming to me after Joel's death, and, basically, how long are you going to lay there? And me saying how stupid they were, by, is that what you did when your kid died, knowing they didn't have a dead kid? And it's just because somebody doesn't have the same experience doesn't mean that they're stupid and don't know what they're talking about. And when we hear things, whether it's people in China telling us that we're paying extraordinarily too much money for items. I know they called out a bunch of different name brands and how much, Nikes are being made for, Lululemons are being made for, couches or whatever. And we'll turn right around and walk right back into that store and pay that same 500-600% markup. Just because it fits into what we've been taught and told. And so we believe
it fits into the identity.
We believe it's a belief of ours.
It actually is a constructed identity that is related around material products.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very subtle thing, but it's related to these individual identities and the way we relate to certain products and brands. It's
deep, and they don't. We have zero acknowledgement or understanding of how deep that shit is.
Yeah.
And it all is society pushing us in this direction. And so the lack of community that we experience, it used to be that there was time for a men's softball group. Again, we had church. I don't go to church. That's something that's a simple one that community comes up in. And I know it's something that church really capitalizes on for recruitment, is the community that can provide, because that community is so fulfilling. It can be confused. Well, I mean, it is God, really. I guess it is God working in all of us as that community relationship occurs, and so you get that feeling in that, and so it's a great recruiting tool for churches.
Yeah.
But we had it. If you worked at a factory, you and the boys would have a picnic. You'd have the softball, basketball, whatever teams. You'd have these different things, but now our time has been filled with working.
Well, let me touch into something real quick. Let me read this quote, if I can. This comes out of the 1927 Harvard Business Review article. It's by a man named Paul Mazur, who worked for Lehman Brothers, right? Big financial.
Yeah, they went out of business in 2008.
Yeah, okay. So this is 1927. It's after World War I. Right, and one thing that war does is it produces things to buy, and even new things. It's just like a thing factory, right? Product factory, new products, inventions. Right, war drives all kinds of technological advances. So, 1927, you have a population that relates to products from a needs-based. It was a needs-based relationship, and the way we were even advertised to was just about needs. Get this thing because you need it. That's what it does. Makeup is why you need it. You know what I mean? So, there's a problem. 1927, you have all this stuff. What are you going to do with it? Okay, there are a few players that are related to this. Edward Bernays is one that was here at the early 20th century, and that's Sigmund Freud's nephew, actually. You could call this guy like one of the first architects of mass manipulation, mass population. Anyway, so here's the quote from Paul Mazur, 1927 Harvard Business Review. We must shift America from a needs to a desires culture. People must be trained to desire, to want new things even before the old has been entirely consumed. Man's desires must overshadow his needs. So, one really important necessity to achieve that would be to connect people from their natural relationship to one another, because that's fulfilling. That's what fulfills us. Intimacy, relationship, taking things in, taking each other in. It's actually what fulfills us on the deepest level. Nobody gives a shit about these shiny things. Not really. It's just what we think they'll produce. So you cut people off from each other, which is the real juice here. Intimacy, connecting with each other. I mean, it is mysterious that we're here on this planet and in this universe in the first place. It would be interesting if we were looking and connected to each other and being like, "Holy shit, this is crazy, isn't it?" Anyway, being a little bit silly, but kind of on purpose, So I'm just pointing to us trying to find our way back to each other. That's a wild quote, isn't it?
Yeah.
1927 Harvard Business Review. It's not like that's hidden in some obscure, Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, is that information is available to us, whether we go out and find it and utilize it, implement it, or whether we ignore it and just continue to complain and go down the same path we're already on. If you're in a certain position and you are unsatisfied with it, or you have questions about happiness, or is this it? Could it not be better? If you don't make any changes in what it is that you're doing, you will wake up in 10 years and be asking the same exact questions because you're not doing anything about it. I mean, I can't, if we go out to the car that doesn't have a battery in it every day and try to start it, it will not start ever, no matter how hard we try. We can kick it, we can slam the steering wheel, we can do put more gas in it, make sure the tires have air in them, keep turning the ignition key. That some bitch ain't gonna start until we change the one thing that needs to be changed. But until we start making little changes like the air in the tires and the gas in the tank, we don't even know what the fuck it is. So if we just go out and turn a key, get up, kiss your wife on the cheek, go to work, come home, kiss her on the cheek, drink 2 beers, go to bed, get up the next day and do the same thing. If that's what you do every day and you're unhappy, as long as you do that every day and don't make any changes, you're going to be unhappy. Nothing's going to change. And, I see things online a lot. People, man, after 35 years, my wife asked me for a divorce. I don't know what happened. I hadn't changed at all. Well, that's what fucking happened. And we as human beings change. It's going to happen, and it's going to continue to happen. And we can make those change positive. We can do them ourselves, or wait until things change around us to a point that we're like, oh fuck, what happened? And we have to make changes just to get back on solid footing. So it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. Maybe that's a way I can say it.
It's the best way to say it. And one of the things that I'm very intentional about working to do in my life now is to help people recognize how they have experienced a form of victimization, but they're not a victim. So meaning we learn all these things and are taught all these things and are not taught all these infinite amount of things. It's not your fault. We just don't know what's going on, and so
it's but it is your responsibility to get it turned around.
Yeah, and it's hard to know where to look. But in today's world, there are a lot of sources that are out there that can at least help you get going. You could say,
Yeah. And you can get taken advantage of. There's definitely people out there who know that these weaknesses exist. Yeah. They're there to exploit them. And we're not trying to send you into the lion's den, but sitting on your fucking hands ain't going to get it done. Yeah. And if you need to get smoked by a con person just to get going, it's happened to the best of us. And you just got to keep rolling. You can't use that as another excuse to step back on your hands. And we're trying to encourage people. Jason and I have both been in isolated places in our lives. We've
Yeah.
both been in, extraordinarily depressed, uh, end of rope type scenarios, so we can empathize for the feeling of hopelessness, helplessness, feeling like a victim, understanding that life is hard as shit a lot of times. So we can empathize with that, and we don't come from a place of judgment like we did it, now you need to do it. It's not that at all. Hopefully you found us because you are not in a spot where you want to be, and you have the desire to get there. And we just want to say we've been there, we understand it and can empathize, and we just want to show you that there is an example in the two of us that you can get out of that space. The issue is between where you find yourself and where you want to be. All is your responsibility in finding answers and
And I love
experimenting
that.
more.
And here's what I say to people now, and I'll just speak plainly, just from the most honest voice that I have, since it's all a spiritual problem in nature anyway. We don't know what's going on, why we're here, what's even, and so all the pain and the horrific things that we see, and we don't really know what the purpose of any of it is. So here's what I say to people: like, if you can, just start exactly where you are, and be responsible for everything you see. So make your bed, clean the floor, do the dishes. Just start exactly where you are and be responsible for just what you see, what you're around, right? Your partner, your child. Just be responsible for that, right? And yeah, it would help if you did certain things in the morning to help your nervous system. And anyway, there are things you can know that will help you be more mature with the things that are around you, instead of relating to it as if it should be different. Now, you may need to change some things, but the reason that you can't change anything is because you can't accept and and really touch into what's going on. So you start where you are, be responsible for what's going on. You start to do some things in the morning, sit down, close your eyes, try to feel into yourself, read a book, YouTube, you know what I mean? And again, that might provide you with the kind of clarity that says you need to leave the situation you're in, right? But you gotta start being responsible for yourself and exactly where you are to find that out.
Yeah, learning that about yourself, holding yourself responsible, not beating yourself up. It
Yeah.
isn't about right and wrong and how did I get here and oh my God and all. It ain't about none of that. It's about responsibility from this moment forward. To Jason's point, if you see a piece of trash on the ground, stopping and picking it up has so many benefits mentally, psychologically, that it's almost a must that you do it. And we're at the end of the show, so we won't keep going into that. But we've discussed that in previous episodes. Being responsible for yourself is massive, and now we're adding this piece of community. So part of being responsible for self is finding a community that is a supporting community, also holds you accountable, but it's you're part of. You can be supported. You can be supporting. In your supporting, you learn, and in being supported, you learn. And so the two-way street that is community, and again, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. So start trying to get it built, find people, and people will come and go from our lives. They are not necessarily fixtures forever, and know that. So good luck, and keep your head up, stay in the fight. As always, is no giving up's not an option, and so we're not going to do it. We're going to keep fighting. Jason and I are both available on the internet, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can find us. Our DMs are open if you needed ever to reach out. As always, we know your time is your most valuable resource, and we hope that we made the best of it. And until next time, we hope you have an awesome day.